What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Coffee and Van Chats. I'm sitting here with Ben Renkema, Boyd Johnson, both amazing cyclists, guys that I grew up watching. I bugged the shit out of them on Facebook when I was a Cat 4 or 5. I just wanted to learn everything about cycling. But now I've moved on to Colorado, and they've moved on to do better and cooler things. And they're running this Southeast gravel race that I had the pleasure of going to in, what was it? Was it Clinton, South Carolina? It's a BMFE of South Carolina. And Ted King was there, George Hincapie, Bobby Ulick. I think Dylan Johnson was supposed to start. So there were so many big names that were supposed to be there. And this is their second year running it. So anyways, how you doing, guys?
We're doing awesome.
Yeah, good. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Thanks for jumping on. So we'll start with Ben and just to get to know a little bit about you. So let's dive into your background. How do you even find yourself now running a gravel race? Tell us a little bit about yourself and so on, so for the people that don't know you.
Yeah, well, really, all the credit for that kind of goes to Boyd. But Boyd and I, we've been very, very good friends for a long time. I'm kind of one of the first employees of Boyd Cycling way back from 2012 when I moved to Greenville. And so when I moved to Greenville, if you were a cyclist in Greenville, you know what a Boyd ride is, where he would trick people to go out on bike rides, on the road bikes, out in the woods. So really, Boyd, he's the creator of kind of gravel riding in the area.
Boyd was doing gravel before gravel was cool.
Yeah, when no one had gravel bikes. And then flash forward to 2019 and Boyd, being the visionary he is, he's like, oh, hey, I'm just going to put on this little gravel event. He put something on Facebook. He's like, how many people want to come out? Like hundreds of people. He's like, let's do it. And I think it was just called, what was it called, Boyd? Gravel event in Clinton or something?
It's like Sumter Forest gravel event.
Yeah. So,
so was that same race that we did?
But it was a different venue, basically same course. So I showed up, I helped Boyd the day before set up, and I did the race. But then after that, Boyd was like, hey, this is going to be a big thing. Like, I need help. So I was fully on board and I was like, let's do this. I think it's great because Boyd has his strengths. I have my strengths with things, and we kind of just both do our own thing, and it works out really well.
Boyd, before I fully met you, I think you were, I don't know if you were really fully partnering or talking with, but Chris Uberti. I kind of put you guys in the same picture. I think of you guys as the mad scientists of cycling. And I always loved reading what you would put out on social media and whatever else. But how did you find yourself in not only into cycling, but making some of the best wheels in the world?
Yeah, so I've been racing for a long time. I started racing in 1993 when I was 13 years old. I grew up in Buffalo, New York area. And so, I got my first bike because I shoveled driveways all winter long, saved up enough, and, fell in love with the sport, started doing a lot more racing, traveling around a lot more. And, Buffalo is not very good for training through the wintertime. So I started moving down south. And, that's where, I always knew that I wanted to do something in the cycling world. I was going through a lot of different things. I was coaching. I worked for the iBike power meter company, which was a really cool device that measures all your opposing forces. So that's where I learned a lot about aerodynamics and the forces that we overcome when we're riding a bike. And, I did my first gravel event. It was 2008. They had the Tour of the Baton Kill up in upstate New York.
Which are they talking about bringing that back? Or am I thinking of the Baton Rouge race, the one in Louisiana?
The Baton Rouge one is the one that they're going to be bringing back. That's a little hiatus.
Rouge Bay.
Yeah, Rouge Bay.
Yeah. And so, we raced that on 22 millimeter Continental Sprinters was my tire of choice there. And wow. I was at 110 PSI because I didn't want to pinch flat on the rocks. And it was a blast. And, training for that, I would take my road bike and just go out and find these crazy roads, a lot of which we are now racing on.
Yeah, it's nuts to think about. And I was thinking about this before I jumped on a call with you two, because you guys have been in the sport long enough to kind of see it transform and transpire a bit. Go from the NRC. I mean, you guys were racing Novant Health when it was like a $50,000 payout, like when it was insane, right? And I was thinking about this. Have you guys ever seen such a drastic change? I mean, like to go from, I mean, it's one thing to go from stage racing teams to a crit team, but we literally went from crit teams to privateers racing gravel. And that's our racing. Have you guys ever seen that drastic of a change in the market?
Not really. No, absolutely not.
Yeah. It's, I mean, I think that, a couple things happened is, number one, people are wanting to get off the roads a lot more. They're wanting to get where traffic is not going to be. And so if you look at, the type of cycling that's going good right now, mountain biking is going really good. Gravel racing is obviously going really good, but even we're seeing an uptick in BMX and track racing. Road cycling, it's definitely not dead. I mean, we just had a criterium here last weekend as well, and the fields were massive there. So, cycling's in a good spot, and we've got some really good up and coming riders coming through the system now.
Well, that sparks a question that just popped in my head, and this goes for both of you guys. I mean, Ben being, crit champion back in the day, and then Boyd, racing for crit teams and kind of doing it all. With just this past weekend, do you guys think COVID might have saved a bit of crit racing? Like, and here's why I'm saying this is because it's pulled everybody away from it for a year, and everybody was talking about how it was dying and we're going to jump into gravel. But now it's like everybody had a glimpse of not having it. Do you think it kind of saved it a bit?
I could definitely see that a little bit. I could see both sides of it.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking right now at the men's kind of pro fields for crits.
Yeah.
There's nobody.
Mm-hmm.
We have Legion, which they are absolutely incredible. And I'd probably put them up against, maybe UHC in their heyday. But there's no really second team that's anywhere near them. But maybe 2021, we're now going to have some of these riders who are coming back into it that will be at that level next year. But no, I can see it from both sides for sure, because this weekend we saw at the Hincapie Spring Series, the fields were huge, and I'm looking through all these photos, and they're like all juniors.
Yeah.
I'm like, look at these photos, and I'm like, that's a 17-year-old kid, 15-year-old kid, 16-year-old kid. And then I see like this one, 35-year-old person. And I was like, what's that old dude doing out there? Like, and I was looking at all these photos, and I was like, this is the biggest junior field I've ever seen. And then I realized it was the Pro 1-2 field.
Well, and I think there's a bit of a gap. And I think I was a part of that gap. So when I was growing up, especially in the Southeast, you had Hincapie, Stan's No Tubes. And I mean, you had a few teams out of Georgia that were pretty good. And I mean, you had your Stradales, you had all these random teams that were like, at least could ride the front and it not be chaotic. And I remember in 2019, and I didn't get selected for Athens when I was riding for Roadhouse and like the Speed Week. And I was like, usually I'd be upset when I didn't get selected for something. I always wanted to go to something. But I remember watching Athens and just being like, thank God. Like there was not a single team that could ride the front, hold control.
Yeah.
And because it was just chaos. It was just like crashes everywhere. And I guess people really didn't understand that when they started seeing teams like United Healthcare, Rally, and those guys quit showing up and holding the front and actually holding the speed high, making a difference. And so I think that's the gap there is you have some of these ex-masters guys who were in the pro ranks back in those days who can ride those fields. And then you have these juniors who are trying to come up through the ranks and it's all trying to meet together, right? And then you have that classic conversation going on between the masters and the junior guy going, well, I'm too old to be pulling. Well, I'm too young to be pulling, And so you have this whole back and forth. But anyways, let's dive into a little bit of Southeast gravel. So like I said, I had the luxury of going out to Clinton, South Carolina in the middle of nowhere. I almost ran out of gas actually, working on a video for it. But it worked in my favor because it was pretty much a road race. Half gravel, half road, but it was some pretty hard gravel sections in there. So how did you guys even find this place, man?
Yeah, Boyd, take that.
So I love looking at maps and roads on maps and stuff. And so it was only a couple years ago that I went out and I knew that there was gravel roads down there. And so I planned out an 80-mile loop. I parked at actually the same hotel that Ted King stayed the night at. Mm-hmm. And I just went out and did an 80-mile ride, found a lot of the gravel roads down there. And one thing that happened, I didn't hit a single Strava segment. And I was like, this has to be an event. And so when I got done with that, I posted the ride. And then I went onto Facebook and just made a post and said, hey, just did this cool ride. Who would want to do an event out there? And like 200 people commented. It was like, oh my God, I would come out to an event out there. And so we organized it for early that year. It was in February. And we ended up having like 200 people show up to the first event. And it was so, it just happened so quick that, like I had registration on Bike Reg at the time, but I didn't have a results software. I didn't have a way to register people on site. We were kind of just winging it. And so like the day before the event, I kind of wrote a Google Docs based results software, because our finish line was 7 miles away from this start finish venue where everybody parked. So by the time that people came back, they actually had results posted.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that happens nowhere. Like I didn't find out my results this weekend, and they had this crazy cameras and all this other stuff. And I didn't find out my results until like 6 hours later when I drove home, because
that's one of the things that we're really, Ben and I are both bike racers. We've been to so many bike races that we have a ton of experience on, okay, what makes a great event? And people want to know what their results are immediately. They don't want to have to wait until they're driving home or get an email with results. And so, something that we've really worked hard on is we built a timing system. And the moment you cross the finish line, your result is posted. And we have a TV on site that shows your overall results, your category results, so that you could literally ride from the finish line to the TV and your result is already going to be posted.
That happened in Clinton, man. I mean, like there was literally like a bro powwow of just guys going like, all right, checking out results. I mean, I was impressed by that, because I was wondering if that was, so is that your guys' TV?
Yeah.
It's honestly like a tower.
Yeah.
It's the weirdest TV I've ever seen.
Well, it's just turned sideways.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's something I've never realized. It races. It's like, but I think I just became accustomed to it. It's like, oh, the race is done. Like, yeah, we'll check results tonight. Maybe it'll be posted. Hey, did you get a video of the finish? Like, I want to know how my guys did or how I did, because there's no way to know otherwise. And then when we started, doing Southeast Gravel, so we call Boyd the timing wizard, because he created basically his own stuff, and he just like does it, and it's perfect, like every single time.
I'm telling you, man.
And I now think like, how come other races don't do this? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. But also something that's really cool, and we need to make sure people know this, is when you cross the finish line, you could pull your phone straight out of your pocket, go to southeastgravel.com, click results, boom, there's the results. You don't even have to go over to that TV and crowd around everybody. You can sit there on your phone and you can look at all the results.
Wow.
No, that's really cool.
That's cool. Yeah. And so, and like I said, I mean, I think this is like, and I might have lucked out, because that is one of my new favorite gravel courses, because it works out in my favor. I don't know how to handle my bike, and there wasn't a lot of huge crazy climbs or anything, so I was able to get through it pretty well. But you guys have a couple other races on the docket, so I'll go ahead and talk about Clinton. Clinton was, 50 road, 50 gravel, and it's more like 55 gravel, 45 road. But there was a river crossing. There was a huge climb at and it wasn't, and by huge, I mean, like, it was just steep and short. It was like at mile 70 or 80 or something, or no, not 70 or 80. It's at mile like,
it was like 10 miles 50. To go.
Yeah. It was like
it was right after that river crossing.
Yeah. Right after the river crossing. And it was just like, it was steep, and then you dip down, and then it was like steady into the road. But this weekend, what was it called?
The Greenwood Gravel Grinder.
Greenwood Gravel Grinder had some single track. So let's talk about that course and what that was like, because I saw Dylan Johnson won that. So I'm assuming that he won that riding off the front.
No, actually.
No?
So, I am lucky enough that the day before I personally set up the course with the course markings because we're very particular about it.
Yeah.
Lots of signage. So I do it myself.
Very well marked, by the way. I do want to say that. That was great.
Again, Boyd has his thing. I have my thing. I'm like, I don't want people to get lost. And eventually I need to get someone else to do it because it takes a lot of time and I have other stuff I should be doing, but I haven't passed the lantern yet. Setting up the course, I get to ride with the lead group because what I do is, of course, people eventually will steal signs. So I stay with the lead group with some extra signs in case signs are moved. And so I'm able to get footage. I'm able to kind of, stay with the front of the race and see exactly how it plays out. I'm uploading to the Instagram story so that way people to finish, they're able to sit there and kind of watch and see what's happening. And it was an interesting race. Usually that race just breaks apart like crazy and it's, one guy solo and then just ones and twos the whole way. But after the single track, it was absolutely shattered. Yeah. They got to 10 miles into the first road section and there was a group of 10, there was a group of 10, and there was a group of 15.
So by the way, the single track happens 4 miles into the course.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So you best believe that detonates. But that wouldn't have detonated. Like I would have lost a lot of money if there was bets on that. Like, cause I would have said there would have been people all over the place. I would have said group of 15, 10.
Yeah. So once they got to the long road section, all three of those groups actually came together. So we had about 30 people in a lead group, which is kind of crazy. And then from there, it just slowly kind of fell apart. And then we had our break of the day of 5 riders.
Yeah.
And Dylan Johnson, he's an incredible rider. He had the aero bars. He was just relentlessly attacking. But Andrew Dillman stayed with him until the last corner where he attacked. But Dylan Johnson was actually able to come around him. So we had a, full on sprint to the line with the two of them, which was pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. That is really cool. So yeah, cause I think what shocked me is when we were chatting about Clinton, like just in the sense of like, you're like, man, I wouldn't expect the group to be this big. And I was like, what do you expect? I was like,
10 people,
we've just been like, it's been a flat road and we've just all been like either rotating. And if some guy goes, it all just comes back together eventually.
Yeah.
So what's the next one? Cause is it 4 or 5?
We have 6 events.
6. Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
So our next one is, it's just a little bit north of us in Greenville here, Zarconia, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
It's called the Falling Creek Pinnacle Punisher. And so Boyd Cycling, they have a wheel set, the Pinnacles, which were named after the main climb on the course, Pinnacle Mountain Road.
Sweet. And so are the rest of these races, they're pretty much climby, drivey, punchy, or are they all different, have their own crazy characteristics?
We've got a couple of good climbing races. The race to Valhalla in Walhalla, South Carolina is definitely the hilliest one. That's got a lot of long sustained climbs. I think that one's like 7,500 feet of climbing and 69 miles. Then we've got Greenwood again, but we do the course in reverse. And so we call that Dunerd because
with 4 miles to go, you got to hit the single track.
But Correct. It's uphill single track. So that'll be good.
Yeah. So that course will be completely different, the opposite way around. So the courses are a good mixture. We've got some flat to rolling stuff. We've got some definite climbing races. And it just showcases how good the riding is around this area.
Yeah, no. And that's funny, man. Cause it's like, I never really noticed how good the riding was until I decided to ride from my in-laws house, and actually Boyd picked my route, but I rode from my in-laws house to Rock Hill, to Charleston, South Carolina. And it was like 400 miles or so, but yeah. And he just depicted, he was like, oh no, you should do this road and you can't find this road. And I was like, and he was like trying to figure out what other road I had and found. I was like, dude, I have no idea. I literally just dropped it into what it was, Komoot at the time. And they just populate something for you. So this next question, it might sound like a dumb question, but I got to ask it because I got to know. And because, some people some people they don't know what they want to do with it. But where do you guys even see Southeast Gravel going? Like what do you want out of Southeast Gravel? What do you want to make of it?
10,000 people on the start line.
Like I said, it might be a dumb question, but yeah. So what do you see?
So I'll take it first. I don't think we're 100% sure yet. I think right now what we're focused on is making each event, which we're doing 6 a year, better. And since the very first event, literally each event, it gets so much better. I made the joke to Boyd last weekend. We were standing there kind of towards the end of the day, and I'm like, at what point are we going to say, all right, today didn't go any better? Like when do we get to that point? I think we're just kind of taking it one race at a time right now, and still kind of looking long term. But right now, we just kind of have our heads down, and we just want to keep making these events just better and better and better, and see where they go.
Sweet.
So one of the things after every event, we always go when we're done cleaning up and picking up, we always go and have Mexican food together. We have a sit down session. What went good today? What could have gone better, and all that. And that's one of the benefits by having a series versus having the once a year bucket list event is, we get to refine, we get to look every single time on, okay, how can we change this and make it more enjoyable for the people that are coming to the events? And, if I look at the series, I look at it as more of the attainable series. We don't have the lottery to get in. Yeah, we're not going to have the numbers of a, Unbound or a SBT. We're probably not going to get 3,000 riders per event, but, it's the attainable. It's a distance to where you can finish it and still hang out with your family at the end of the day. It's going to be hard, but it's not something where you've got to, go and leave your family for weeks at a time while you go ride your bike. Mm-hmm. You can register for it. It's a $75 entry fee, so it's not the $300 or $400 entry fee. It's something to where we want people to be able to register, be able to ride, and have fun.
That's cool. Yeah, and I actually was impressed by that, because it was like I did feel like it was weird. I felt like I was at a road race, but I felt like I was at a gravel race all at the same time. So it was like, with gravel races, at least for like the local low level gravel races, and not trying to say that you guys are low level, but I just didn't expect to show up and usually I'm spending 30 minutes trying to figure out, okay, where do I find my number? And then there's just some guy out of the back of his van. He's like, oh, we don't do numbers here, man. Just it's on the system, write it up on the sheet of paper. So then I was like, oh man. So it was like the organization of like a legit race with the vibe and the feels of a gravel race. Everybody was there. Everybody wanted to hang out. Literally that group of 10 or whatever it was finished. Ted King and Dillman and all these guys were all just standing around. We're just chatting about how crazy it was, how fun it was, and how we had a blast. And you guys have raced enough crits. It's not like you're hanging out with that team that just beat you right after and being like, man, wasn't that great? That was a blast.
Remember when you elbowed me? That was awesome.
That $1,000 premium one and I missed out on, that was great. I loved it, man. That was so much fun. All right, we'll see you next week, bro. Yeah. And so it was really cool to just like all just hang out and just chat and just talk about, oh man, when he attacked, dude, I thought that was game over. Like I was done. I was cooked. And it was refreshing, honestly. And so it was really cool to see. But anyways,
that's been one of my favorite things to see is the community aspect. I mean, we've had groups from DC coming down to do this, and they're hanging out with, they're making new friends down in the Carolinas. We've got the awesome lunch at every event, and it really lets people go out, have an experience together, and then talk to each other around the dinner table. I think having that provided lunch is really key to making it feel like a community.
I agree.
Don't forget the beer.
Yeah, that too. The beer as well. I mean, it was one of those things like when I finished, we had that powwow, whatever, it was cool. But then, I'm sitting down with Bobby Ulick, and sometimes you don't even know who you're sitting down with, because like you don't really recognize them. And like, we're getting halfway through a conversation because I guess I had like some one of my old teammates that was on the Team Pursuit team rode for Hincapie, and he had his name tag on a bottle, and it was sitting on top of the table. And the guy's like, "Hey man, where'd you get that bottle from?" And I thought he was angry at me, and I was like, "Oh well, it's an old teammate." And then one thing rolled into another, and it was just, it's cool the kind of community that you can create at that lunch, and it is a lot of fun. But I don't want to keep you guys all morning, but I do have one last. It's our famous question here on the Coffee Van Chats podcast, which I don't know if I've prepped you guys with, but if you guys could have a cup of coffee with one individual, and it doesn't have to be coffee, it could be beer, it could be tea, it could be a glass of water, it could be a lemonade, it could be just a beverage. I've come to the conclusion with the amount of people I've interviewed at this point, not everybody drinks coffee, and so I have to respect that. It is 2021, guys. But anyways, if you could have a cup of coffee with one individual, who would that individual be, dead or alive, and why? And how would you take that beverage or coffee? So we'll who wants to go first? Is anybody?
Why do you go first?
All right. Well, I definitely drink a lot of coffee. I just take it straight out of the coffee maker.
Yeah.
Nothing added to it. And honestly, I wouldn't choose any one individual. It's whoever I'm with at the time. That's going to be a great conversation. With both Boyd Cycling, with Southeast Gravel, we get to meet some amazing people, and sitting down with them, hearing their story. Everybody's got a unique story. And so whoever I'm having coffee with is who I'd want to have coffee with.
No, that's super cool. Yeah. Bike Hardcore is actually doing something like that where they've like kind of tasked me to, like, if I run into somebody at a race that I just feel like has a cool story, just like they want to do a whole content thing on it and like make them a sponsored hardcore athlete. So that's kind of interesting that you said that with just whoever you're with at that current moment in time. I like that. Ben.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I like beer. I like decaf coffee. So
decaf coffee. Does that not?
I got that heart issue, that made me quit racing so much. So, I still like the taste of coffee, but I don't know. I mean, how about like, I didn't.
It's a hard question. And I think, so Matt Musa was like, is it Ray Vaughan? Stevie Ray Vaughan? Yeah, that's what Matt Musa said. Like he would say Stevie Ray Vaughan. And I think he doesn't do coffee, and it was Guinness. And then Justin Williams was Kobe, which is a good one. Mm-hmm. I think it was like a flat white or something. All
right, you know what? So I'm not going to put too much thought of this. I'm just going to say the very first person that came to my mind at the result of looking like an idiot. I was going to say Jesse Pinkman.
Boom, right on. That's the character from Breaking Bad. So it would be the character. It wouldn't be the actual actor. It would be the character, right?
Yeah, no, the character. Yeah, Breaking Bad. Yeah, we hang out for the day. Yeah,
take my coffee with some crystals in it.
Yeah.
Well, sweet guys. Well, like I said, guys, if you haven't already, please go check out Southeast Gravel. They're doing some really cool things, and I mean, who knows? They might end up being. I mean, after the way they did their Instagram story, they might actually be the first gravel race that will be live. And you can watch it on TV. Who knows?
We're actually trying to figure out how to do that. And I haven't even told Boyd yet, but I do have a pretty good idea that we're going to try at Falling Creek to make it a little more live and a little better, to get some actual video from in the group. Yeah. Because the way I do it now is I'm on the motorcycle and I'm taking Instagram stories from either behind the group or in front of the group, because I'm one-handing it.
Well, yeah, I was also I remember watching it, and I also remember being in it, and so seeing it happen. And so I remember it like happening, and like you're having to figure out, all right, is that John? Is that Ted? Who is Matt? Who is that guy? I don't know who that guy is. And so it'd be interesting to see if you guys could, because with the budget that Lifetime has, and even Leadville.
Yeah.
Like what are you guys doing? Come on, guys.
Yeah. That is kind of weird that. Yeah, because I don't think it would be hard. I mean, like, I know the Media Moto guys, like you could just hire them, not that that's cheap, but yeah. So we'll see.
Well, it's not easy, but it's also not hard. It's it's kind of one of those things, especially in the day and age we live in. Maybe 10 years ago, it would have been really hard. But nowadays you can just take a GoPro and connect it to Wi-Fi, and the next thing you know, and you can literally buy a Wi-Fi puck, and you're literally doing lives.
So real quick, the Clinton and Greenwood event were incredibly dusty. And so I really wanted to kind of not be in the group because just kicking up tons more dust. But our next event, Falling Creek, I mean, there's like no dust in that course. It's a very damp, kind of wet course. So I have some ideas for Falling Creek that I'm going to try to implement, and we'll see how it goes.
Sweet. Well, cool, guys. Like I said, if you haven't already, please go check them out. There'll be a link in the description below. There'll also be a link to Red Rocket Revolution, which is a sponsor of the race, and Boyd Cycling, which is also a sponsor of the race, which you guys should definitely go check out. Other than that, we'll see you next time, guys. Cheers.
Awesome. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Pleasure.